workers at Ground Zero for helping to reconstruct the hollowed ground. The President and First Lady Michelle Obama signed one of the final steel beams that will be added to the tower, which will rise to a symbolic 1,776 feet when it is completed. Construction workers looked on as the President wrote, "We remember, we rebuild, we will come back stronger."
Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? This work continues. The story goes on. And an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm.
Rome tonight, where Pope Francis is preparing to leave for that historic trip across the Mideast into the Holy Land.
Pope Francis is now on a whirlwind 3-day tour throughout the Holy Land. And on his trip, he will shake hands with religious and political leaders in 3 cities and deliver at least 13 speeches and homilies.
The Vatican flag raised over a Palestinian refugee camp alongside the Palestinian flag, a sign of how Pope Francis will inevitably be drawn into the old conflicts here. In Jerusalem, meanwhile, the city prepares for a lockdown security operation. Pope Francis is trying to break through all the political and security barriers here to reach people with a message of hope. In a stunning move, he's going to ride in an open car, unprotected by bulletproof glass, through much of this trip. Francis will visit 3 separate lands: Jordan, the Palestinian territories, and Israel, say 2 masses, give 13 speeches, and greet thousands of people in several motorcades, all in just a little more than 48 hours.
Right now, the international hotspot, Jerusalem, on the Pope's visit to a historic event. How is the arrival being perceived and received in the Holy Land?
It depends, like everything else in this part of the world, Dan, on who you talk to, which side of the bitter divide in this part of the world you listen to. For the Palestinians and the Jordanians, the Pope is actually going to Jordan first. It is a moment for them to welcome the leader of the Catholic Christians in the world, a shepherd to the many in this part of the world, and to get him on board in their judgment for their cause, Palestinian statehood. There is a Francis effect here in this part of the world, crossing that divide here in Israel as well, that sense of openness and naturalness, compassion for the poor that he's brought, which has made him very popular. A columnist here in one of the newspapers proposed Francis for Chief Rabbi of Israel. There's hope that he'll bring some magic to this troubled part of the world. But one side in particular, what's called the cenacle, the upper room, if you remember your Acts of the Apostles, it is the place where the Last Supper by tradition is said to have taken place and where Pentecost is said to have taken place. The Pope will say a Mass there, and that has ultra-Orthodox Jews, many of them here in Israel, very upset because they see that as the site of the burial site of King David.
Pope Francis makes his first visit to the Middle East tomorrow since his election. It's billed as a 3-day religious pilgrimage to Jordan, the Palestinian territories, and Israel.
The theme of that trip is that they may be one.
We need healing, so much healing, and if somebody stretches out and brings healing like Pope Francis has the capacity to do, I think that is more than we can expect.
This is also an opening to bring all Christians together, Eastern and Western, Protestants, Catholics and Orthodox, and the ancient churches of the East, to say it's enough. The Lord asked very deliberately that we be one.
Pope Francis's trip to the Middle East, making his first pilgrimage to the Holy Land as the pontiff, beginning his tour by meeting with the King of Jordan.
His arrival, which turned into a rock star-like entrance, certainly here, folks in Jordan, very excited to see him, gave him a very warm welcome as he arrived. He's also bringing as part of his official delegation a rabbi and a Muslim cleric as well. Crowds were lining the streets for his motorcade on his way to the king's residence. Then he had a big mass here in one of the stadiums.
As he's landing in Jordan, there's an earthquake in Israel, 4.1, and there's lightning striking the One World Trade Center in New York City. There it is. That is the One World Trade Center. A lot of people see it as the symbol of the New World Order or the One World Government. It was struck by lightning, as you can see, hit the spire, which is on the very top of the One World Trade Center, and that's controversial because a spire, that's what you put on top mosque. A lot of mosques have those on it. I mean, that's what they have. And President Obama had just put that beam, one of the beams that went flying off the original trade centers, he had signed the beam with the Harbinger scripture, and they had placed it on the 104th floor of this building, which we know there's 104 holy books, considered holy books or texts by the Muslims. They have 104 books they consider holy. It was also 104 prisoners that were asked to be released during the peace agreement process that's been going on between Palestine and Israel. These are not accidents. So while the Pope is rerouting his trip and calling for the end of Israeli occupation of Palestine, bringing a Muslim with him and a Jewish rabbi, talking interfaithism or one world religion basically, as he's landing in Jordan, there's an earthquake in Israel and there's lightning striking the One World Trade Center.
An earthquake was felt on Saturday morning in southern and central Israel at around 10:30 a.m. The earthquake's epicenter was in Jordan, near the border with Israel. Media reports in Jordan said that the earthquake was also felt in the southern part of the kingdom.
A huge earthquake has shaken Greece and parts of Turkey. It struck off the coast of Greece in the Aegean Sea at around midday local time, that's 11 o'clock Central European time. The quake was felt in Athens and Istanbul and shook the entire Thrace and Aegean regions.
If you have clear skies where you live and you're at all inclined to see a stunning and free show in the heavens tonight, do so. Go out anytime between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. Eastern to see what astronomers say could be a very active meteor shower that may verge on a rare meteor storm with a torrent of shooting stars in the sky. They say look mostly to the north for as many as 30 an hour to hundreds of them per hour.
Just this evening, lightning struck the One World Trade Center. Is this a coincidence? I know many of you remember the lightning striking the Vatican once the Pope resigned last February 2013.
A sign from God. Just hours after the Pope announced his surprise resignation, the heavens over Rome opened and the top of St. Peter's Basilica was struck by lightning.
And we correlated that with Bible prophecy in regards to Satan being struck down like lightning. We believe that that was a coming of the beast, a coming of the false prophet. Could this lightning strike that hit the One World Trade Center just this evening correlate with the trip that the Pope Francis has made over to Israel this weekend? He's planning to sit on the seat of King David, over King David's tomb, over the place where Jesus had the Last Supper, over also the same place that's considered where the baptism of the Holy Ghost and fire was given and poured out to the disciples in the book of Acts. This is crazy stuff, you guys. We're talking about One World Trade Center over in New York being struck by lightning. My oh my, is this Bible prophecy? Is this a sign from the Lord letting us know that now the New World Order is coming in full effect because the abomination of desolation is about to happen, or is virtually already here?
The image of their country here, all over this country right now, Uma, are billboards featuring the King and the Pope saying, "Together we make peace."
The theme of that trip is that they may be one.
Trying to bring peace and an urgent end to the suffering there. The other message that Pope Francis has brought to this country and this part of the world is the issue of religious freedom and all of the religions, the Muslims, Christians, and Jews being able to live together in harmony and practice their religion with freedom. Remember, here in Jordan, it is about 90% Muslim here.
Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? This work continues. The story goes on, and an angel still rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm.
Pope Francis made his way to Bethlehem directly from Jordan.
A fire broke out in Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity early Tuesday, just hours after Pope Francis wrapped up a 3-day Middle East pilgrimage which saw him visit the shrine. It was a small fire which had broken out accidentally when an oil lamp fell over just before dawn, causing some damage to fabric wall hangings inside the grotto of the Nativity itself.
The fire started on its own, then burned itself out. 2 ornate icons of Mary holding Jesus sustained smoke damage.
A giant sinkhole has opened up in a residential neighborhood of northeast Baltimore in the U.S. Measuring a block long, the sinkhole sucked in several cars and forced the evacuation of a row of houses. Witnesses said the ground shook as the sinkhole expanded and it appeared to be a landslide.
Oh my God!
A landslide in Afghanistan has buried part of a village, killing at least 2,100 people, with thousands still missing. People are using anything they can to continue to dig and search in the 100 meters of mud.
An earthquake has struck Thailand. The magnitude 6 quake hit close to the town of Chiang Rai in the mountainous north and was felt in the capital Bangkok and neighboring Myanmar.
Japan on Monday, Tokyo residents woke up to the strongest earthquake felt since the Fukushima quake and tsunami over 3 years ago. At 5:18 a.m. local time, the 6.0 magnitude quake struck the seabed near an island south of Tokyo. Though the trembler could be felt beyond the capital region, the most intense shaking reportedly occurred in central Tokyo. At least 17 people are reported to be injured.
In Canada, dozens of residents saw a meteor streak across the sky on Sunday. Some described it as having an orange tail, with many others saying they saw a flash of blue and heard a loud boom.
And we've seen a lot of sinkholes. This one swallowed a road in Russia. The big hole opens up right in the middle of traffic. It was 21 feet across.
Mexico City and the surrounding area have been struck by an earthquake that caused a big scare.
Felt nearly 200 miles away, magnitude 6.8 quake reportedly sending office workers screaming into the streets.
It's the latest in a series of quakes to hit the Pacific coastline in Central and South America.
Fox News alert: more than a dozen homes destroyed as wind-driven wildfire spread in Southern California. A firenado, it's where wind funnels the flames upward, similar to a twister or a tornado. Not something you see every day there. Meantime, thick black smoke darkening the skies in a suburb of San Diego as a heat wave helps those fires spread.
The governor has declared a state of emergency for California. So far, it's forced thousands to evacuate, and there is 0% containment.
And this is an unbelievable scene. These aren't brush fires out in the middle of nowhere. They're burning in the crowded suburbs of San Diego itself.
One local leader went as far to say that in all of his years, he has never seen so many fires break out in one small area. Now, this is one of 9 fires that broke out through the area yesterday.
And we are just at the beginning of what is proving to be a catastrophic fire season in California. The fire chief there says he has never seen such extreme fires this early in his nearly 3 decades of firefighting.
The Serbian Prime Minister has called the floods in his country the worst natural disaster in its history, after the equivalent of 4 months of rain fell in just one day.
At least 40 people are now known to have died in the floods after the heaviest rainfall since records began 120 years ago.
How many people are displaced?
We believe in this moment it is more than 30,000 of them.
More than 30,000 people.
And 300,000 homes are without electricity. Bosnia has also suffered, and both countries have declared a state of emergency.
In some areas, floodwaters reached the second floor of people's homes.
Many towns and villages are completely cut off.
Well, it's a good thing it is not football season, because take a look. This massive 40-foot sinkhole opened in the end zone of the football field at Austin Peay University in Clarksville, Tennessee.
It is a giant sinkhole in Tennessee. It opened up on a football field at Austin Peay State University. The 40-foot sinkhole opened up near where crews were doing construction.
Thailand's army has declared martial law to restore order after 6 months of anti-government protests which have left the country without a functioning government. Armed Thai soldiers are on guard outside the government's security command centre in the capital, Bangkok. The military has taken over TV and radio stations.
This was not snow, it was hail, and in some cases up to 20 centimeters of hail that fell across some of these areas in Sao Paulo. And this is huge. They had to use bulldozers to move it out. People still had some of this icy stuff on their lawns the next day. That's how long it took for it to melt. It did cause some damage to buildings, to cars, broken windows was a big concern.
If you have clear skies where you live and you're at all inclined to see a stunning and free show in the heavens, to see what astronomers say could be a very active meteor shower that may verge on a rare meteor storm with a torrent of shooting stars in the sky, for as many as 30 an hour to hundreds of them per hour.
A huge earthquake has shaken Greece and parts of Turkey. It struck off the coast of Greece in the Aegean Sea. The quake was felt in Athens and Istanbul and shook the entire Thrace and Aegean regions. Turkish and Greek authorities said it was 6.5.
An earthquake was felt on Saturday morning in southern and central Israel. The earthquake was also felt in the southern part of the kingdom.
Begin with that story breaking overnight. A mudslide 4 miles long and 2 miles wide has struck just west of Denver. The wall of mud came crashing down in an area near the town of Colbrand. 3 people are missing. That mud is about 250 feet deep in some areas. The slide was triggered by heavy rain.
Unbelievably big, 4 miles long, 2 miles wide, and about 250 feet deep.
And a lot of rain has fallen in the past 24 to 48 hours.
Homes reduced to rubble. Flash floods and weeks of rain have brought landslides to Belgrade. Days after floodwaters almost completely submerged central Serbia, over 1,000 landslides were triggered in the Balkan country. Gardens are moved hundreds of meters from where they were before.
3 forests have slipped into the river, and half of a village is gliding down.
Meteorologists warn of more rain over the weekend and say smaller rivers pose a threat to flash flooding.
An earthquake that hit southwest China's Yunnan province has injured at least 34 people, including 3 in a serious condition. The 6.1 magnitude quake jolted the region. 5.6 magnitude quake hit the region just last week.
13 caskets out there floating right now.
Caskets from the cemetery on Belrose Lane floating away from their resting places.
The graves and tombs have come up out of the ground.
This is the aftermath of today's storm, but flooding wasn't just happening here.
When I woke up this morning, it was like someone pouring buckets of water.
Water was as high as the mailbox, and there wasn't a piece of road to be found.
Well, the latest that we're getting in at this point of time, we're going to get out of the studios and show you exactly what the national capital is witnessing. A little past 5:30 p.m. and already scenes outside where it looks close to 8:30. Visibility down to 0, freak weather situation in the national capital, coming down to a complete power cut in most places. It started just about a little past 5 p.m. The weather turned dramatically within a matter of minutes. In the morning, a high of 44 degrees Celsius was reported as suddenly the weather turned, and this is what was witnessed. Trees have fallen, a massive dust storm accompanied with heavy rain lashing the national capital, bringing down the capital to its knees.
By around 4:30, everything was fine. In fact, there was scorching heat. But then the situation changed within a fraction of seconds. There was a huge gush of wind, started raining. And would you believe, within 5 minutes, there were huge branches that fell off. The power of the wind that was blowing at that point of time, this huge pillar was completely uprooted. Everything was so chaotic. The people who were going back to their places found it so confusing.
We are still getting...
Yesterday, we were reporting that there's a heat wave in the north. Palam in Delhi was reporting the highest temperatures in 16 years. But today, the image I'm seeing behind you is very different. What's going on?
A 7.4 magnitude earthquake hit the country on Wednesday morning.
Massive earthquake just hours ago.
Some strange noises heard around the world the last few weeks.
A very large fiery object was falling from the sky.
After a sinkhole opened up.
An enormous sinkhole.
I've lived here 20 years. I've never seen this happen.
No one can identify it. A terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures
just dropping dead. Australia has experienced a summer of weather extremes with record-breaking heat, rising flood levels and devastating bushfires.
The largest of Friday night's tornadoes, it was the widest ever recorded. It was over 2.5 miles wide.
Breaking news, a powerful earthquake has struck.
Many neighborhoods drowned in hours and hours of rainfall.
Climate change is to blame and warns the worst is yet to come.
Large asteroids are hitting the Earth far more often than anyone realized.
The last 24 hours have been the bloodiest in Ukraine's history.
The chance of an asteroid striking our planet is actually higher than scientists previously believed.
The floodwaters washed away massive chunks of the city.
From Australia to Norway, Japan to the U.S., thousands of people have reported seeing unidentified flying objects.
Amid extreme weather worldwide, to questions about whether this is all a sign of the apocalypse.
Come to Christ.
Fear over chart-topping musicians being used as a tool of the devil.
Never before in the history of this country have so many corrupting influences descended upon children at one time.
And pretty soon, when we have full marriage equality in every state,
conquer death by the year 2045.
Russia flexing its muscle now by sending a nuclear message to America.
What is your purpose? Come to Christ.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
We wonder why we're suffering economically, why we're suffering politically, why we're suffering the moral decay. We wonder why.